Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Coach Les and John Yarwood, and we are here with Matt Chat. And I'm laughing because of the wiggling that was going on to the music. So we
Dancing to
are
the intro.
that's the intro, and we are geared up for tonight. We wanted to do it on a different night just to play around. But we'll be back on Thursdays when it happens. And I see we've already got 3 people that are interested. So just to let you know, you can drop comments depending on where you're coming in from. If you're coming in, you could type right in, and I believe it will show up in our comments. We'll see. And with that, tonight we are looking at dedication, which is essential in martial arts. It forms the backbone of a practitioner's progress, skill development, and character development. So we're going to talk about 10 parts of dedication to really create an interest. And as you probably saw as you came in to whichever viewing site you're looking at, you'll see that our goal in these StreamYard videos is to share with people and create an understanding of what's possible outside the studio. We all know what it looks like inside a studio. Most of us have seen it on TV. We've driven past a studio and we look and see people in their robes and belts and colors and kicking things and, hitting each other if they're, sparring. There's more to it than that. And that's what we're here to expand on and expound on, which I believe is more important as a coach. This is the most important piece. So as you listen to these videos, we've done several of them. You can go back through Yarwood's Martial Arts Facebook. You can see them. You can go back through mine. We're streaming on 3 different Facebooks. We're streaming on my LinkedIn again because I was off for a little while there. We're on YouTube and we're on X. And the opportunity is to really just take a look and see. They're only 30 minutes, maybe 35. And inside that, you'll see the benefits to carry out into your life. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Mr. Yarwood, and I'll jump in occasionally. And I look forward to hearing him share his knowledge and wisdom from inside the studio and inside many different places like schools, homes, gymnasiums. And with that, over to you, Mr. Yarwood.
Yes, sir. Thank you. So just kind of touching a little bit on what you were talking about with the importance of everything else that we do outside, what I say outside the dojo or beyond the mats. All of our training, obviously we do physical training. We learn how to do kicks, punches, blocks, all the things that, martial artists do. And everybody knows about that. But I think what gets lost a lot is what I really teach. And that's life skills. And to me, it's the most important aspect of what we do, being able to help these students to not only grow in their physical capabilities, but in their life. When they go to school, when they're home, they only spend a couple hours a week with me. Rest of the time, they're out and about in the real world doing their thing. And if I can get to them a little bit with the things that are important when they're out and about doing those things, I can hopefully help them to change their outlook and how they do things, how they interact with people, how they build relationships, how they just any number of things. So we teach life skills as a main part of our curriculum. And we always pick one in particular every testing cycle to focus on. And this cycle, we're working on dedication. Dedication, some of the kids don't really understand when I say, what is dedication? they don't really quite get it, right? They think it's like, just working hard at doing something. Like, well, yeah, kind of, that's part of it. But when you're dedicated to something, it's something that has some meaning to you, some value, something you're going to focus your energy and time on. You're going to spend, a lot more of your free time working on whatever it is that you're dedicated to. It takes some extra energy, some extra focus. But usually it's something that you probably truly enjoy and really get a lot out of and put a lot into. So when we talk about dedication in the martial arts, one of the things first we talk about is being mastering our skills. Now, mastering skills I think it's a big vague term. When I say mastering skills for our students, it's improving upon where they are in their level, right? So if we get a kid who comes in, he maybe isn't very physically talented, maybe he struggles a little bit with coordination, whatever. Our goal is to help him to be able to improve upon, say, his front kick that he struggles with, right? And we talk to him about what it takes to get that front kick to where he wants it to be. So when he does it, people look at it and go, wow, that was really nice. That was a good front kick. So we talked to him about dedicating some time to it outside of the dojo, doing some practice, right? Going home and building a schedule around at home for when it is that you're gonna actually train, and put your uniform on and pull up the videos and start practicing. So you're repeating over and over again the kicks and strikes and blocks that you're learning, and refining those skills to make them better. So when you do come back into the dojo, they look better, and the instructors go, wow, you've been practicing, haven't you? We can tell, right? We see that you're dedicating yourself to learning how to get better at doing these moves, at working at Taekwondo. But not only that, it messes with their brain. They start to realize that, wow, if I put work into something, if I spend time doing something, I'm going to get better at it. And then we could take that knowledge that they just learned about practicing their skills when it comes to Taekwondo and say, well, what if you did that at school? What if you took some time at home and dedicated it to studying a little bit more, even if you don't have homework? Take 15 to 20 minutes out of your day and study one of your classes. You think your grades would improve? You think you might get smarter? I mean, there's so many applications to it that we can take from it that have nothing to do with Taekwondo. Dedicating themselves to doing all these other things, they start to realize that taking a little bit of more effort and time and focus into something is going to make them that much better at something.
It's really great. I think the first two steps, so I'll kind of play the part of reading the outline. The first one is progress and skill mastery. Martial arts techniques require continuous repetition and refinement to master. Dedication ensures that students commit to regular practice, steadily advancing through increasingly complex movements and techniques over time, which, as you just heard, one of that things is it builds, this is number two, but it builds physical and mental strength. People often wonder about brains. Brains are designed like a muscle. They're a particular muscle with electronic pieces, these neurons and cells and synaptic responses that grow and shrink and expand. And the idea is, because martial arts demands such a high level of physical fitness, mental resilience, and endurance to overcome some of the things that we put into our minds, dedicated training helps to build the physical strength, agility, and mental fortitude necessary for advanced practice and self-defense. So really, and for me as a business coach, this is one of the things I share with people all the time. You're either expanding or contracting. There is no sitting still. You can't just sit on the couch eating bonbons and expect to grow.
Well, you will grow, just not the way you want to.
Exactly. So the next couple are discipline and self-control and perseverance through challenges. Do you want to speak to some of that?
Yes, sir. So when we're dedicating ourselves, I mean, it does take discipline to do what we do, to be able to advance in your rank, to be able to advance in your knowledge of your training, to take the time out of your day to focus on what it is you're doing. And you have to dedicate that time to make sure that you're doing it. And it's constant, right? It's not you do it once and you got it, right? You know, the world champions don't win and then just stop, and then win and then stop. They're always training, always practicing, always improving. They've dedicated themselves to that sport or whatever it is that they're doing to make it so, you know, they were once a world champion. Yeah, great. Now what, right? What's next? Like, you just got to keep going. If you stop, you won't be world champion again, right? If you stop doing what you did to get there in the first place, it ain't going to happen. So you have to have that discipline, the self-control to be able to say, okay, I can go hang out with my friends. I can train. If I train, I get better and I can become world champ. If I hang out with my friends, all the people that are in my ring that I train or that I compete against are moving forward and I'm not. So if I stop dedicating myself to what I'm doing, I don't have the self-control to make the decision to do the right thing, I'm going to fall behind. And that happens in everything that you do. You know, if you're in school and you stop doing the work that you're supposed to do, your grades start to go, right? So if you're at work and you're not keeping up with all the work that you need to do, not dedicating the time to learn all the new processes or whatever it is, you're going to start failing at what you do. So having the dedication to have the discipline and self-control to continue to work, even when it sucks, especially when it sucks. Because if that's when you dedicate your time to it and it sucks and you get through it on the other side of it, you're like, man, that sucked, but I feel a heck of a lot better now than I did. What's that say? New recommended black belts.
New recommended black belts asked me about the discipline that I put into my black belt journey. They were surprised with the choices I made to foster my skill set, going to extra classes, waking up in the morning and practicing my forms, and strength training. It is important to set aside and commit time to your practice to become a black belt. It was written by Denise.
Yes, ma'am. She just earned her black belt. She just did it. Yep. She busted her butt to get where she was. She worked a lot. We did a lot of private lessons. She did private lessons with me, private lessons with Mr. James. She was working. She was always in class helping out, doing that. She earned that black belt. And not only did she do that, she set an example for everybody else in that school because they all recognized what she was doing. And they're like, man, she works hard. And, you know, she's leading the way. And it's an awesome thing as an adult to be looked up to by the rest of the kids in your kids, not just adults, but kids saying, wow, she really worked hard to get that. Setting that example is an amazing thing. Dedicating yourself to that, to making that decision to say, this is my goal. This is what I'm going to do. And I'm going to take the time and effort it takes to earn that belt.
And then she just wrote a second thing. It's important to understand what the word "my," when she said my forms and strength training and her choices, you know, it is an individual journey. It is yours, no one else's. You share your journey with others who share their journey.
Yep.
And I think, you know, one of the things, you know, I can tell one on myself as being part of this. You know, I started my journey a couple of years ago now, about a year and a half ago, with Mr. Yarwood. And, you know, what I ran into was a year ago this month, I got injured, which took me out for a little while. And I allowed that to impede my training. You know, it kind of put me on the bench for a while. As I healed and came out of it, I allowed work to continue to interrupt, to continue to take my time. And then we went into the busy season with selling ice cream. And it became a second and a third thing for me to do. And whereas, Mrs. Denise put her priorities on this goal, I allowed my injury and allowed my own health and well-being and work and stuff. I had to make choices. We all have to make choices. In that time, I chose, some would say, well, it seems like you chose the wrong choices because now you're out of shape. Maybe the choices were the choices I made. I'm not going to beat myself up about it. I'm not going to say I wasn't dedicated, because I've definitely been dedicated to my business and to my new businesses, the ice cream shops. And they took a little more time. We went through some growth and pains and struggles. And I look at that as, it's just one of those things where we can move those priorities across. And I've now, set up a plan with Mr. Yarwood, much like Mrs. Denise did, to take private lesson. And I'm back in last week, and to share, it means going back to the beginning. I had to go back to the first form, and I spent an hour doing the first form over and over and over. And I didn't stop until I did it 5 times in a row without making a mistake. Because I know that that it's there. I know that it's in me. Now, yes, did I suffer for a couple of days afterwards? Of course I did. That's to be expected. But I'll be back there tomorrow, and I will continue to step it up and step my game up. Part of the problem, I think, for me, and this happens to a lot of people, is they dive into something and they say, I'm going to do everything. And they set other things aside and they lose their integrity with other things. Coming in and doing it with a level of integrity that works with family, with your like before you did Taekwondo commitments, and then figuring out a new way to schedule things with integrity. That's the name of the game. That's what I'm up to now. And Mr. Yarwood's my coach in that matter. So here we are. Once again,
Yep.
Important to understand what the word "my" means in practicing and goal achievement. Mrs. Denise put it really well. It's an individual journey. I don't have to compare myself to Mrs. Denise or to anybody, right? It's my journey. I deal with my stuff and I share my journey. That's why I'm here. And the idea here is when we do these meetings and these videos is for you to see the humanity that both myself and Mr. Yarwood have experienced in martial arts. I can look and say, I started martial arts before Mr. Yarwood did years ago. So many years ago, it'll tell you my age. I started in my early 20s, right? And once again, I jumped in and I allowed circumstances to take me out. So here it is. Welcome to the game and welcome to the creating a world of dedication. Over to you, Mr. Yarwood, and thank you, Mrs.
I don't normally talk about me personally, but within the last, I want to say it's got to be the last year and a half. I was at Worlds in 2023, in July of 2023, and I went to our organization's master's ceremony. And as a 5th degree, I have to train for 5 years in my rank before I'm eligible to test for 6th degree. But once I test for 6th degree, I can spend a year, the following year, in training to become what's called a master. And once you become a master, it's like this. It's the ultimate in dedication. I mean, it's short for master instructor, right? So when I become a master, that to me is a huge responsibility, right? And it's my personal dedication that I made at Worlds that year. I was watching these these new masters walk across that stage and be dubbed master by our grandmaster. And it was just like, holy cow, that's only 4 years away from me, right? It's a lot closer to master than I am to when I was a white belt. And all those thoughts and ideas started running through my head, like, oh my gosh, what do I got to do to get to that level? What are these things I need to take care of? Because up until then, I hadn't really been paying attention. I've been doing my stuff and doing whatever, but I've been more focused on my school and my students, that I kind of put myself on the back burner when it came to that. So is July of 2023, I rededicated myself to the goal that I had set a couple years back to become a master. So now here we are, a year and a half later. I've completed 4 out of 6 midterms that I need to complete. I have another one coming up here in a couple weeks. I need one more, and then all of my list of things I need to do to test for 6th degree are slowly being checked off, right? But I've realized that I need to listen to myself and what I talk to my students about, and make sure that I'm doing those things and leading that way and dedicating myself not only to them and to my school, but to myself. Because if I stop doing my stuff, then the rest of everything else is going to suffer. And being the leader of the school, being the guy who everybody sees, if I'm off my game, that affects everybody else all the way down the line. And that to me, I can't allow that to happen. So I've rededicated myself to making sure that I'm doing all the things I need to do to make sure my stuff is getting taken care of, and then that transfers into doing the rest of it for everybody else.
Oof. And I don't, just to let everybody know, we're not going to get through all 10 of these tonight. We're going to end up talking about 5 of them. And then we'll come back this coming Thursday, and we'll talk more about the remainder. And I think what there is, what I really want to share here is this piece about respecting the art and tradition. What you just heard from Mr. Yarwood is that respect that he's given to that 5th degree, and looking to see what is possible. And also, this is the key thing. And the best way that I can present this conversation to people is to say this. As a business coach, if my integrity is out, and what I mean by that is if I'm not in communication about where I'm having difficulties, where I'm having breakdowns with my coaches, my own personal coaches in my health, well-being, my business, and with Mr. Yarwood as my Taekwondo coach, if I'm not in communication and I go silent, i.e. I run away, stop communicating, ghost people, what starts to happen is the respect that I have for my business and my clients is impacted by that. Why? Because they have looked to me and hired me and looked to me as just much like Mr. Yarwood shared about Mrs. Denise, about all the people in the studio that have seen her go through her training, the respect that she's earned, the trust that she's earned, all of that is the same thing I have in my business coaching, right? And without that, if we don't have that, if we're not willing to step up our game, we're going to have a problem. And that problem then passes through to the people that we are training. And it's such a hard thing to teach or coach people that this is imperative. Practicing what you preach. I'm not saying you have to be perfect by any means. What I'm suggesting is that you be responsible for the game, for the commitments, for what you've spoken, and respect for the art and tradition. So in just allowing to speak this, dedication shows respect for martial arts as a discipline, an ancient tradition, and a way of life that was expected in martial arts. By committing fully, practitioners honor the values, history, and techniques passed down through generations, preserving the integrity of the art, which, as we're sharing with you every week, has a tremendous amount of impact in other areas of your life. And that's what me being here, that's what I want you to take away from this. Those of you that are listening, that's what I see. I see it in business. I see it in life. I see it in faith. I see it in school. I see it in relationships. I see it in health. I see it in wealth, not just monetary wealth, but wealth of all those other categories. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to you to kind of wrap it up and talk about any of these first 5 things, Mr. Yarwood.
Yeah, we kind of, covering the tradition. That's such a big part of martial arts. There's so much tradition. We're steeped in how we bow to each other, how we respect each other, how we speak to each other, how we shake hands, how we line up, how we, pretty much everything that we do is steeped in that tradition, and it's passed down from our martial arts ancestors, I guess you could call them, and we have to keep those things, dedicate ourselves to those traditions, because that's what keeps the martial art solid. It's what keeps it growing. It's what keeps it moving forward. Not stuck in the past, but bringing the past along with us to help grow the future through the traditions that we've developed and inherited. So it's a huge part of what we do, because it gives the structure and the foundation to everything else that we do, so we can make sure that we're learning not only what we learned from our past, but what we are going to be adding to the future. What part are we going to produce that becomes tradition in the future for our students? And it's a huge honor. It's a huge responsibility. It comes with a lot of accountability. It comes with a lot of perseverance to not want to be the one who breaks tradition and messes things up. So there's a lot of that built into it. And when we talk about dedication, perseverance comes to mind for me, because perseverance is, obviously never quit, never give up. But it's also, there's going to be times you're going to run into obstacles. You're going to run into barriers, and all those things are going to try and get in your way and impede your progress. And if you don't have that grit, that perseverance to continue, you're going to stop. You're going to find a way to quit. You're going to want to go do something else because it's easier, whatever it is. And if you don't dedicate yourself to it, the perseverance is going to be, it's not going to exist. You're going to just, it's too easy to just not do it. Oh, I don't feel like it. I don't want to go today. I'm tired. I don't want to go today. I'm sore. I don't want to go today. I'm going to go have coffee with my friend instead. You do that once. Every time you do it, it becomes easier and easier to not do what it is that you told yourself you're going to do. And once you dedicate yourself to something, you have to stay dedicated. You have to stay mentally, physically focused on what it is you're doing. Otherwise, you're not dedicated. You're just doing something that you like, and then you find something else you like, so you go do that. And then you find something else you like, and you go do that. And you never really complete anything. You never finish anything. You don't get out of the task or the activity or whatever it is you're doing. You're never going to get anything out of it, because you keep moving to the next thing, the next thing, the next thing, the next shiny object. And you go through life doing that, and pretty soon you're going to find yourself, there's nothing there, right? You don't set yourself up for success. And it's a hard lesson that you got to learn, but by the time you learn it, usually it's too late. So being dedicated, finding that thing that drives you, that passion, that keeps you moving forward, regardless of what it takes to get there. When you dedicate yourself to it, the results, all the accolades, all the things that come from it are going to come in plethora because of all the other things that it affects along the way.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Yarwood. I just
sir.
want to thank Rena, Mrs. Rena, Mrs. Sherry, Mrs. Denise. Thank you all for coming in. Really do appreciate it. Appreciate the comments, playing along and putting the comments in. Fighting for goals. I love that, Mrs. Denise. Thank you for sharing that. And, we look forward to continuing to grow this conversation. I think this conversation is definitely going to really be something that builds and grows what happens outside the studio. And I appreciate that with you, Mr. Yarwood, and look forward to continuing to grow that.
Yes, sir.
And with that, we'll sign off for tonight. Here we go.
See you later. See ya.